And we kick off with Doug from Oracle. We've got a set of 5 presentations. So Oracle, Metaswitch, Matrix, Ericsson, and then we're finishing off with a preview of the Dangerous demo, which will have its own stream on day 2. And then more exhibition time networking, and then we head off for dinner by 6:30. There's a few more blue stickers getting allocated, so hopefully virtually all the people that have asked will get it. Fingers crossed. We're just having to shake the tree to make sure that we had a couple of people that had registered for the dinner but haven't turned up for the event yet, but we were shaking them down at the moment. So what I will do now is hand over to Doug, who will talk on the programmable network. So over to you, Doug.
Thank you, and I'll give a brief plug for the Dangerous demo tomorrow. And the reason it's dangerous is James is putting me on the spot to actually be one of the demonstrators, and I have yet to even touch it. So this I see it as very, very dangerous. I just hope no one gets hurt. Talk briefly about the programmable network, and I'm joined by Vincenzo Amoreno from Telecom Italia. He's hiding up in the corner there. I'll pull him in when it's his turn to speak. Hopefully he can hear us now, although I bet you he's muted at the moment. Vincenzo, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello,
good.
Hello,
okay,
everyone.
very good. So halfway through, I'll turn it over to you, and of course I'll progress the slides since I don't think you can see them from your side. My name is Douglas Tait. I'm the director for marketing around communications products. I focus very much on the service delivery platforms, although my new charter's picked up around network function virtualization. And I want to give also credit to Stefano Gioia, who's at the bottom of the slides here, who's been working closely with Telecom Italia. Unfortunately, Stefano could not join us. Medical emergencies. Hopefully, out of this medical emergency will be produced a baby. So, but unfortunately, the wife is in distress with a broken rib and the umbilical cord around the neck of the baby. So they're now spending a lot of time at the hospital, and we'll see in a week or two whether this slide deck produces a child or not. But I hope Stefano all the best. Let me jump in here. So we're talking about the programmable network. I have 2 sections here. I'll do most of the speaking on section A. And we'll look at section 2, where I'll turn it over to Enzo, and we'll talk about what he's doing with the programmable network within Telecom Italia. Do you recognize this man? Anyone? Say that out. What was it? The bartender? The bartender downstairs. Yeah, he'd probably be doing better at that point right now. I'll give you a hint. It's a very sad American story. Anyone? Okay, I'll give you another hint. We have one of these on our phones. Everyone has one on their phone. Very good. This is George Eastman of Eastman Kodak. He's the creator and founder of Eastman Kodak, and any of us who lived earlier than 1990 are familiar with Kodak and Kodachrome and the Kodak family of products. And as my in-laws still insist on trying to find a roll of film someplace that they want to, and then trying to find a place to develop it. He founded the company in 1888. The interesting thing, and I don't want to go into the history of film or cameras, but they actually invented the digital camera out of Eastman Kodak in 1976. So they're one of the pioneers for digital cameras. Yet 90% of their market share, in fact, I think it was even greater than 90% of their market share, was in the old way of doing business. Was in the film, developing a film in 1975. So consequently, they failed to implement any digital strategy around their cameras and anything to do, especially in 1990 as digital cameras took off, and they filed for bankruptcy just a few years ago, and they bellied up. So one of the most innovative companies in America not staying relevant. And of course, you know where this is going and how I'm talking this, because we see this. I think we are reaching several inflection points in the industry today, and that's one reason why we're here at TAD, to see the next round of development or neat applications that we develop for networks. Will it be for a communication service provider network? Will it be for over-the-top? Will it be for IP? And the interesting thing is, well, how and where do these companies fail? Are they going to be relevant to what we're doing here in the next couple of days? So Turnaround Management Society asked 405 turnaround managers, restructuring experts, about what factors lead to corporate crisis. Most common cause of internal cause of corporate crisis, we look at the top three, is the management held on to existing strategies. They dogmatically held on to this. I got in a little debate with Stefano on this on the phone, and he says, well, sometimes they're complex, especially a company like Eastman Kodak, very complex, a lot of hierarchy and oligarchies or whatever. But even complex companies can change and morph and move forward as long as they don't hold tight to those existing strategies, which we saw in the Eastman Kodak situation. They held on to film cameras. And the management, they were unwilling to adapt. And now we are at this revolutionary new age of adaptation. In fact, now I see it even at Oracle. I don't want to play the company too much, but one thing I'm proud of, I look around at most of our products and there's always a degree of adaptation going on right inside the core of the engine somewhere. So I always have my inputs and my outputs, and somewhere we're always playing with it and providing an adaptation along the way. And the management had no vision or lacked the vision or kept the existing vision, or the vision wasn't moving forward. So they really, without a vision, as the book says, the people perish. And so without a vision, corporations perish. And so these were the three key things I think we want to keep in mind as we go forward. We look at and we're dealing with a lot of these giants and a lot of the innovators here and what's going to happen to them in the next couple of years. So thriving communication service providers, they have it requires a few things: agility to address situations, respond to market changes, adapt to business processes, and rethink the strategy. I'm just taking those key bullet points that we saw on the previous slide, just flipping them around. And this is what they have to do to stay relevant. One of the key technologies here, I think, is exposing those core network assets, or I want to say those core corporate assets, because they can go beyond just communications. Expose those out for where we see innovation and third-party developers. You have to forgive my Skype there. This is one thing I don't like about Skype. I have a little control over my laptop, but I want to keep Enzo on the line. And so what we have around API management or API functionality, and what we looked at, especially in our product, is around that API lifecycle. How do you test for those applications? What are those non-functional requirements? In other words, I have functional requirements. What are those other requirements that come along that I need to add to a box, that I need to add for those interfaces? And then things around self-service and I want to say cloud services. And we see this zero touch really coming into play. That is, I should be able to allow an automated process either for an end subscriber or an enterprise or a company to go in without having any human intervention. And so we're even exploring this around network function virtualization, where I can go ahead and build a network and then deploy it automatically without sending out a truck or without building a system, and have that all built for me in several ways. That's another subject altogether. But I drew up here the classic approach, which I'm sure you've seen from me and my competitors and our partners here, is that programmable network success is I have all those inputs and the bespokes, everything's coming from all sorts of directions, and where we come across a standard, or at least a de facto standard or a network platform, where I can take those interfaces from anywhere. I can make sure that it's a secure interface. I can make sure I can authenticate it coming in, and then I can reach into what I say are my core corporate assets, or in our case, the core network assets, and then expose them out to those third parties. We did a workshop yesterday, and the key things that we saw in this diagram is the gazintas and gozaltas. The things that go into that box are key, and the things that are expressed out that I can use. So having a full repertoire of interfaces is very useful to me, and we'll see this in the Telecom Italia approach, where they have a full repertoire of things that I can access as a developer. But then underneath that, coming up, and how do I attach that to the network, and how many things I attach it to, and how I expose that also becomes that key point to this platform. So of course it solves my problem here on the left-hand side, but when we move it to the right-hand side, that becomes equally as important to be relevant, or to make sure I have what we call business transformation. That's becoming the new buzzword around the office. So we can do network transformation. We know we can do technology transformation, but can we transform the business by this? So the technology will lead forward, but we go back to that old example of Eastman Kodak. Could they change their business and their business mindset? So at least we can move forward with the technology, but we see a new mindset has to come in play in order to stay relevant. APIs, Telecom APIs has a long history. And it's interesting to me how this becomes a single thread. I challenge anyone to go back to earlier to 1996 and see if there's anything prior to where we started something. I started something at Sun Microsystems called Jane, where we were trying to come up with the standardized interfaces for Java for the network. And we ended up producing about 34 APIs, thanks to the industry, only little thanks to Sun, because Sun never went around and implemented any of them. Other companies implemented, and the companies here today are using Jane Slee or built Jane Slee. Other SIP servlets and other technologies came out of that. But out of that Jane initiative came Parley, where the Parley group said, yeah, we want to expose those core network assets, but do it not only for Java. So they took it to other platforms as well. You know, and kudos to them, but they really focused on that core network appliance, which wasn't as important as exposing out. The one good thing that came out of Parley was Parley X, because out of that you started getting a generation of APIs, OMA, GSMA specifications. Short-lived WAC, hey, good idea, but terrible execution. You know, it only lived and died within 2 years. And we even have the, so we see other GSMA-based APIs. Are they the set that we want? Is it useful? You know, I don't know. I think it's for us to determine. But on the flip side, we see what's going on in the IT space is a free-for-all, which is, let's say, undisciplined or all over the place. Now, it's a spaghetti, piece of spaghetti here, and it even looks like a subway map of London. But the important thing here, I think, for me as a computer scientist, is I had the capability to have a lot to choose from, and a lot of them are very good standards. So I may have 500 and only 5 may be relevant, but at least I had something I could work with. You know, coming out of it with a degree in computer science, I could readily go and grab that math library or the interface library. There's other libraries and then implement that in my code. When it came to communications, I came up dry. And that's one reason why we see a lot of those APIs created back in the day. Let me talk briefly about a few use cases, then I'll turn it over to Enzo. I'm probably taking too much time here, so I'll fly through these quickly. Tait, Telia, they took the API approach, or I want to say they transformed their business. And what some of the benefits they got, I have up here in the left-hand corner, they really were able to take 3 platforms down to 1. Because of all that bespoke going on, they're able to consolidate down, and they're able to reach out to their enterprises and consumer voice services. They produced a very quick time to market in this scenario, especially in the business scenario, and also provided automated test for deployments, continuous delivery and updates, and reusable components. Those last lower left-hand things, important to note that those were the business side aspects of it, and that's what kept that thing going. So technology they put in place, but then to put those business things in place was equally as important. And they became very dynamic. They partner with major IoT companies. Right now, most of their IoT, Internet of Things, is being driven through the third-party apps. Enable partners to come in and access the system, and they really start providing software as a service. Here's a Tieto diagram. And I think the couple key things to point out in this is they build it both for the cloud and for NFV. So they had a business model of the cloud, and then they also have the rollout model around NFV. But key to that is that stack, which I know is hard to read, but at the very top there you have those network APIs that go into an app server platform that again drill down into an IMS platform, and then you have at the bottom the edge devices for voice over Wi-Fi and WebRTC. They reduced their time to market, they reduced their OpEx, reduced their CapEx quite dramatically. And let me give one more final example here. I'm going to turn to Telecom Italia, and Enzo, I'm going to pull you on the screen here. Give us a quick test. We can see you now.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can hear you.
Hello.
Hey, Enzo.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and we can hear you in the back. I'm looking about, 200 people here in the room? 150? 500 people here in the room, Enzo. So
Great.
we are all looking at the slide that says our evolution of SDF digital service telco. Is it evolution or revolution? I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you also, Alan, for permitting me to participate even remotely to your great event. So let's spend a few minutes of your time talking about the Telecom Italia experience. I guess several of you know a lot about the Telecom Italia experience regarding the network API and the service deployment platform. Why we are calling here a revolution of service delivery framework? Well, because we know we heard this morning and also during the afternoon, the operator are looking inside to understand how to improve the launch of new services. Now that the operator competition has increased, the consolidation of the over the top or over the network, that we know causes a reduction of profitability, And so operators are forced of being smarter, so finding new revenue stream and new way to monetize their assets and data. I'm easy to say that I work in a division that is called Smart Pipe Network API, so both of these important items are our day job. In particular, operators have to leverage existing capability to provide value beyond the simple data connectivity, improving the usage of the functionalities. And as we know, the network API are mainly the preferred to create value in order to monetize the operator assets. Obviously, we are trying to close the loop internally also between the different divisions that are involved in the service delivery. And so the cloud formation and the agile approach, or what we call easy API approach, are a good way to obtain that. Next slide, please. The next slide, number 13. A few description where we started. We started building what is called the service exposure framework, the service delivery framework. So an horizontal layer really in our network that aims to solve the typical horizontal feature between the interaction toward the third party, external third party. So we build all the northbound protocol adaptation, the traffic balancing, the throttling, the service level agreement, the identity, and so on. We launched the service exposure about 8 years ago. The platform growed. The results growth of this platform, and today on the next slide we are on what we call now the Easy API framework. The Easy API means that we look at to simplify the usage of the exposure network API. We have all the building blocks with all the feature that an operator may provide. There are the typical API that several operators have in their network. So we have the voice API to create a call control, or for the billing, for the location, obviously the messaging that is still the main used API that we have. API for the MVNO, really important in this period, the user identity related API, and so on. It's important, a couple of things on this slide. First, the number that are involved. Here on the slides, I stated 1.7 API billion invocation per month. Probably while we are refining this presentation, we have 2 billion API per month. So it's impressive how the growing of the API invocation over our platform is growing very, very fast. Another important point you can see on the top of the slides who are the customer, let me say, of this kind of platform. We have the third party, more than 500 third party connected, and 200 internal services. An important message we are looking during the last years is the boost of the internal usage. This is an interesting point. What does it mean that we are boosting the internal usage of the network API? Well, it means a couple of things. First, means that our internal dissemination, apart of this kind of conference we make externally, I know that all the people inside the room know the value of an API approach, but that number means the boost of internal usage means that also internally people and division are noting that the API approach may improve the time to market. We launched also an internal community for network API, and you may believe there are several requests every day from people from different areas inside the company that would like to use the API. That's great, because they understand that the usage API may improve the time to market of the services. Next slide, please. Yeah.
1.7 API billion per month, is that 1.7 calls or APIs that are called per month?
Invocation per month.
Invocation per month. Okay, very good. All right, on the next slide. We're looking at Easy API functional view.
Exactly. Next slide, please.
Yep. Slide
This
number.
is a brief description of what we mean about Easy API. Easy API means to simplify the usage of the API. So we improved the registration. We have now a catalog. We have a single way to have the event data record, so to know who are using the API and how to monetize the usage of the API. We have a single way to create reporting. This it may seem simple, but we have to not forget that we didn't have this kind of simplification 3 years ago. And also this simplification permits to talk about API also to people that maybe are not so involved in the technical aspect. Okay. Just to give you an example of the first commercial usage of the Easy API, next slide. The first commercial usage of this new platform built on top of the service exposure is the usage of the API for the Expo. Probably some of you knows about the big event Italy hosted till a few weeks ago in Milan. That was its number 16. It was an interesting usage of Network API. In fact, for the digital ecosystem for Expo, Telecom Italia offered a couple of API using the new Easy API framework. We delivered the mobility scan API that has been used in Expo to expose reporting containing the real-time density of the presence of team customer in a specific area, so related to the location, and obviously the SMS API. We are going forward. We have a lot of plan delivery, and also the boost that I was saying about the internal usage means that new services built by Telecom Italia are built on top of the API platform, and we will see a lot of new services next year. Last words. This is not a technological approach, it's also an organizational approach. So we have to learn from a technical perspective, but we also be able to explain also to non-technical people that are using this API how to leverage the great value of the API approach. That's all. Thank you. Doug?
Thank you, Enzo. Unfortunately, I know we're out of time. We went 5 minutes past. But I appreciate your time, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Alan, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doug.